Hello, nerds. Welcome to the Geek Girl Story Salon, where I talk to creatives from across disciplines and across the world about the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Jen Jackalone, lifelong storyteller and head geek in charge. We've got some great guests coming up, so be sure to smash that like and subscribe button to stay up to date on the heaping helpings of brain food coming your way, courtesy of our partners, fleetoffandoms.com and Ilva Publishing, an independent publisher for women-focused fiction. My guest today is author of more mystery and suspense novels than I can shake a stick at, although I'm not really sure why I'd be shaking a stick at them. He's been on the show before, but the conversation was lost to the ether, so he's graciously returned on the condition that I can't ask the same question. But we will be talking about his current supernatural suspense series, Flint and Tinder, or as I call it, Awkward Gays with Superpowers.
Yes.
Thanks for coming back to the show, Gregory Ashe.
Oh, it's a huge honor. Thank you for having me back. You said this. We did have a great time the first time, and I'm so glad we get to do it again.
Yeah, me too. Me too. How is it out there? It's pretty brutally hot out here for Memorial Day
Oh
weekend.
gosh, you know what? We have been so lucky. It's supposed to be like in the low 80s again. I'm just like, I'm gonna make myself cut the grass because I know I know it's gonna get brutally hot in a day or two. And so even though it's a holiday, I'm gonna just do it so I don't have to. But yeah, it's good. We are enjoying it. The dog is having a fantastic time. So I'm sorry that you guys are dealing with the brutal heat.
Well, sometimes it's the weather. What can you do?
Well, right. I know.
So because I've spoken, I've had interesting conversations with a few authors since the last time we spoke. And so it got me thinking about there's this trope, mainly in women loving women fiction, but some in mainstream fiction as well, of the Ice Queen.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like Miranda Priestley in Devil Wears Prada. These smart, accomplished women with very high walls, and they're mean to everybody because they're so profoundly damaged. And I was wondering this, is there a gay male equivalent to that trope?
Man, so you were nice enough to send me these in advance so I could think about them, because I would be flat-footed if you had just asked me that. So, and I'll tell you why, because I am not very good with tropes. In fact, I actually keep, I'm obsessive about lists and notes, which tells you probably a lot about me as a person, but I have a list that I keep of tropes as I learn them, because they're not something that I have a good handle on. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about one of the things that has really, I would say in the last year, taken off in male romance is the dark romance genre. And I know this isn't exactly the same as what you're asking, but it made me think of kind of the tropes that involve serial killers or mafia lords, or even to an extent like the billionaire trope, like the ultra rich trope. So I know none of those are exactly the same, but those are the ones that came to mind for me. I mean, when you write, do you do a lot with tropes? Is that how you approach your story, or do you think of them through that lens?
I don't.
Yeah, neither do I. Yeah.
I know that when I come to a story, I know that there are certain character types that I kind of tend to gravitate towards. Usually for me, it's like the lone wolf who has trouble letting people in, like some variation on that.
I love it. Yeah.
It's not really the Ice Queens. That's not really what I do.
Right.
But I definitely have character types I keep coming back to, and certain story types that give me somebody who's not parent material, literally an assassin or something, and make them take care of a small child to rediscover their humanity. The Mandalorian, The Professional, this story type, that's one I love, and I've been cooking something with that for a while. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, so I've read two of your books. I've read Loud Pipes, and then I've read one that's not out yet, which you were nice enough to send me. And I don't know if you're sharing the title of that one yet, so I won't say it. But in both of those, I noticed you have very strong women who are not confined by gender roles, right? Who don't even make an attempt to play into gender roles. And so though that's not a trope either, but I'm just kind of thinking about, like, you don't, in those two books, you didn't really lean into a lot of the tropes that I think of around romantic suspense. But like I said, I'm not super good with
Yeah.
tropes. So yeah.
Well, no. I mean, it's just interesting. Is usually what happens with me is like I write the thing and then figure out the tropes afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know,
it. Yeah.
you know.
That's
Um,
probably a, I mean, that's probably a more, it probably creates a product that's less rigid, right? Like when you can see the pattern in there after it's made instead of just starting with the pattern and trying to paint by numbers. Um,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly the right. That's the way to put it, I think.
because I
Uh,
think those tropes we've all like, I can recognize one, right? Even if
mhm,
I don't know the name for it.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we're all immersed in stories for so long. Like, yeah, those resonate with us.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's easier, or I think it's better or more natural if you figure something out organically and then find and like you said, find the pattern in it when you're trying to pitch it to people
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah, it's almost more like a packaging, right, or a publicity device than it is a storytelling device. That's really
exactly.
helpful for me. I'm glad you said that, because I hadn't thought of it in those terms until you said that. So that's really helpful.
Hmm. Um, so all right, so I guess this is sort of a related question,
Oh yeah.
which is I think like there's definitely a character type that you seem to gravitate to a little bit. Um, which is, like you have North, who's, a little bit of a, jerk.
Yes. Yes, he
And,
is.
and then you have Emmett, who has sort of the disposition of a wounded badger. So, um, what is it that attracts you about these kind of like misunderstood a-holes who have
Yeah.
like all this
Yeah.
pain inside?
It's so interesting that and it's funny that you bring up North in particular, because I'm writing these crossover books right now, and I just had a scene. Yeah, it's been so fun, and I just had a scene where he said something pretty mean to a main character from another series, and I thought it just kind of happened. Sometimes I don't know if that happens to you. Does that happen to you? You're writing and you're like, oh, I did not anticipate that, and I
Yep.
thought I kind of had to step away from it for a minute and think, would North really say that? And I was like, yes, he would. He loves to just pick and like bully, and he's got a soft side. So I actually did some reading about that. About, I think of them as kind of versions of the bad boy trope, and they're not all bad boys in the sense that they're, the dangerous outsider, but they're bad boys in the sense that, as you described, they're prickly, they have a shell, they don't. And I think, kind of as I read around that topic and tried to figure out, why do I like writing these characters, why might someone like reading them, one of the things that came up for me was this idea that, one, we all have this tendency to want to know what's going on behind a facade with other people, with the people around us. We, especially like the people that um we're not having just a one-off interaction with, right? We want to know what's going on, like what's really happening there. And then there's also this way that, whether or not this is healthy, like it somehow feels more special when someone who is abrasive and unkind to the world in general is nice to us, right? Or like chooses us as the person that is special. And so it's a little bit of the, I mean, like, it is in that sense, you're kind of like, that also is like how abusive relationships happen. But I think this is, hopefully, the like healthy, non-abusive side of that dynamic. Does that make sense? I
Right.
see you nodding, so I'm like, please validate
Absolutely. No,
me.
no, absolutely. And actually, I think that that is the male equivalent of the Ice Queen
Oh, interesting.
because the appeal is the same. I had Anna K. Ren on a few weeks ago, and she loves her Ice Queens. Her
Yeah.
book, her debut novel, Strange Attractors. It's like this sort of psychological thriller, dark academia, romantic suspense kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
But her main character is like this real tough ice queen.
Oh,
And,
cool.
you
Well, so
know,
that's helpful for me. Like that is the same dynamic playing out in that trope. I didn't
it
realize that.
it is because what it is, and we talked about this, like the appeal of it for us as readers and, for people who dig writing that trope,
Yeah.
the barrier to entry is really
Yeah.
high.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with certain other ones like the enemies to lovers trope. Like the barrier to entry is really high. So you
Yeah.
have to be really like a strong, special person to get past that
Yeah. And
shell.
that is where I think like when you put it in those terms, then I think so that's why sometimes I have this knee-jerk reaction of, well, why are they putting up with it? And like you gave the example of the Devil Wears Prada, where it's not really a romantic dynamic, but there's still that intense desire for
Hmm.
approval and validation.
Hmm.
And there's like a career aspect on the line. So she's got a real goal. But I know I've run across other books where I've thought, no, that person's just a jerk. Like they're not attractive enough to put up with what. So I guess that's the trick, right? Or one of the tricks is finding a reason they'll put up with it. Did you guys talk about that? Or like in that book that you described, what
Well,
is it?
actually, in her book, it was interesting because there's a lot of stuff about chaos theory kind of woven through
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Um, and in her case, it was interesting because the two characters were attracted to each other for reasons that sort of went beyond their conscious level of
Oh,
thinking.
cool.
It was like, oh, you remind me of my mom a little. You remind me of my sister that I lost, that I was estranged from as a kid a little bit. And,
Yeah.
so there were these subconscious things at play
Yeah.
in addition to the stuff outside of that.
Yeah.
And that I thought was a really interesting, kind of ballsy thing to do.
It is. It is. I mean, and I think we all probably have some of that, right? In our interactions with people, they're like shaped by things that we're only even half conscious of at best, right? Maybe completely unconscious, about. And but they're there for sure, right? I mean, people date the same kind of person over and over again.
Right. And I think,
Your face.
yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, it's like we don't want to talk about that because it's a
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
you know,
It could
it's
get
a,
creepy. It could get,
yeah,
yeah,
it,
dark. Yeah.
it's a side of human nature that we kind of look at and go, "Hmm, I don't know if I really want to poke at that."
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
I thought it was, interesting that she did that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really interesting.
but yeah, so well, that's
Well, that's
interesting.
cool. I'm
So,
so glad that you connected those two things for me because I just really didn't have that on my radar.
well, that's, I mean, that's why I love doing these things is,
Yeah.
we kind of bounce off each other and figure stuff out.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So, all right. So this is just sort of a fun, kind of silly question. Um, but if somebody was going to make the Flint and Tinder books into like a film series or a TV series or something, have you
Yeah.
thought at all about who your leads might be?
Yes, and okay, so I had to think about Emmett. So like Flint and Tinder has two people. Emmett is just coming out of his teens. He's very young, and Jim is at least 10 years older. He
Mhm.
was actually Emmett's teacher before they both kind of left this small town where they'd been living. So there's a backstory there. And as you said, awkward gays with superpowers. So I had a really clear image of Jim kind of long before I even got into these books because he's a side character in another series. And I have the picture of Simon Baker from The Mentalist. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. It
Yeah.
was, it's
Mhm.
probably a 10 or 20 years old at this point, but kind of blonde, looks good in suits, like um so when you asked me about who Emmett would be, I really had to think because I was like, okay, who would? Because I never really had a clear. So one possible candidate, and this is the backhanded compliment part, is did you ever watch the MTV Teen Wolf. I don't know if you would have seen.
I didn't. I'm aware of it, but I
Okay,
didn't.
let me see if I can look up this actor's name because he was also on. He had like a little cameo on Arrow as like, oh, what was his name? Give me 1 second. I should have had this tab pulled up. Well, I'm not going to be able to find it. He plays, I think the character's name is Jackson. He's just like, he was like a Abercrombie model back when that was a thing, very, very like classically handsome. Turns out super closeted in real life. Like that came out later. And, but he's such a bad actor. I mean, if he hears this podcast somehow, I will apologize to him. But he would be like a perfect Emmett because Emmett is really just, especially before some events that happened in his life, he's like just very, very attractive. Colton Haynes. I just saw it. Colton Haynes is the name of the actor. So those are my two picks for the cast. But yes, I would have to, it would have to be an alternate universe with better acting abilities.
Okay. All right.
No comment.
If I ever talk to him, I'm not going to say a word.
No, so. just be like, it's so nice to meet you. I don't know if it was really interesting. Like, this is just a side note about him because I found, he's very attractive, and I watched the show before I knew he was gay and closeted. And then somehow it came, it was one of those things that like popped up in my Google algorithm, and I was like, oh, Google, I've been searching for the wrong things. But what was interesting is like, he has this whole backstory about like being an underage go-go boy, like in Hollywood, it turns out his real life in many ways was more interesting than any of the characters he played. And I was like, boy, you're like material for a Lifetime movie of the week, waiting to be made. It was just really interesting to hear about, the drug culture and like, which you hear with every celebrity story, right? I mean, but anyway, I just thought it was interesting kind of how, that was the thing. He had to hire a special voice coach to not sound gay, which I did not know was a thing, but there are specialist voice coaches in Hollywood that help men sound less femme or less camp. And he paid someone, I believe, a great deal of money so that he could get those straight acting.
Iron the gay out of his.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I just thought, yeah. So anyway, just like I said, the real story was way more interesting than anything he ever did on TV. But
yeah.
So yeah. Sorry, Colton. Just told people a lot about you.
What can you do? I love, and I haven't finished the whole series yet, so there's probably things that I don't know yet.
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah.
But if I don't know if you know William Miller.
Oh no.
But I would
look him up.
Yeah, look him up. I would love to see him as Adonai.
Oh, wait, hold on.
He's from, and I'm just exposing my geekiness here. He's from the Warrior Nun cast, and he plays basically like this fallen angel who is
cool,
manipulating humanity to his
and
will.
The first few pictures that show up, he's got that great long hair. Yeah. Oh, he'd be a great pick for that.
So I was thinking about who would I cast for some of these parts.
I love it. Do you do that with your own books? Do you always have
face casting? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much always.
Do you do like reference photos? Like, is that part of your process?
Not so much.
Okay.
I mean, if I have somebody in mind for it, then that's usually just who I have in my head.
You already know them well enough that you don't have to like. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like pretty much all of the things of mine that you've read, I've had people in my head for them.
Oh, I'll have to ask you off the air who some of them were, because I'll be curious to know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So cool. So we'll talk about that after time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So all right. So let's talk about POV for a second.
Oh yeah.
Because most of what I've read from you is dual POV.
Yeah.
Why do you like that so much?
Well, I when I read that question, I was trying to think. I know I've written so like Hollow Folk is one that's just one point of view, and I know I have at least a couple others that are one point of view, but I really, really like by the time I've built both my characters, I really, really like both of them, and I want to spend time in their heads. And so that's part of it. And then part of it is like one of the things that I because I tend to write series and I tend to write slow burn relationships that develop over multiple books, not even just over one book. And so one of the things that gives me is a lot more material to work with in terms of building those relationships. Like when you can do the same thing from one point of view, but I think it's more immersive to kind of work through each person's relative issues from inside their point of view. And then it also gives you the great tool of being able to show like stage misunderstandings from the other side of the relationship so that whatever it lets people be jerks when they're not trying to be jerks, if that I mean, and all of those things are certainly possible in one person point of view, but I like the flexibility of having both of those. It's probably part of it too is I think maybe we talked about this last time we spoke. I grew up reading a ton of epic fantasy, and so my default when I came to writing was this assumption that I was going to be head hopping and doing a lot of like these huge casts of characters, and they all had point of view chapters, which was, I mean, my gosh. So anyway, those days are behind me for the most part, I think. But the legacy is I still really like having multiple points of view in a book. And now I'm trying to remember the most recent one I read had dual point of view. Does Loud Pipes, like now it's been long enough that I don't remember.
Loud Pipes has a dizzying number of POVs.
Okay, it did. I thought it had a cast, like a kind of almost like an ensemble cast, kind of.
Yeah, you had the detective who was, more or less the main character, but then you
Yeah,
had POV from all these other characters. There were a lot of moving parts in it,
yeah.
and I wanted, I mean, basically, I wrote a detective thriller, but I wrote it at a time in my life when I was watching Game of Thrones, and it shows.
Yes, love it. Yes. Um, the series that I'm wrapping up right now, which is the Holloway Holmes. It's this kind of afterlife story of what would happen if modern day descendants of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson got involved in murders at a private school. And in that one, I tell everything from the non-Holmes descendant point of view. So it's everything is through a boy called Jack. And that one was that point of view decision, which I've had a bunch of readers ask me, well, why don't we ever get Holmes's point of view? And I do have some short stories from his point of view, but the novels are all from Jack. It was really because it's just so hard to write from the point of view of someone who's supposed to be a genius. I mean, I'm not a genius. So I mean it's really challenging. And so I mean, it's also a bit of an homage, right? The Sherlock Holmes stories are all told,
From
at a
Watson.
distance. Yeah. But boy, some of those point of view challenges are about those difficulties as well.
Right. Just how do I get into this
Yeah.
person?
Have you had to make that decision about someone, not for the genius reason necessarily, but for something like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. There have been times, like sometimes you see thrillers where you get into like the serial killer's POV
Yes.
or
Yeah.
whatever, and
No.
not for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Not for me. That's
You have
just,
to go to a dark place to do that.
yeah, that's a place that I just decided I don't need to go.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I don't write spies and assassins and,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
um, but there's still the spark of, humanity in them. And it's not
Yes.
not
Yeah.
necessarily that they like killing, it's just what they do.
Right. Right. Well, and it's not, yeah, there's I mean, in the books I've read, your characters aren't, I mean, they're good people, they're complicated people, right? But they're like not what we would call evil, which is what I think you have to go to if you're going to write those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured out a while ago that that's
Yeah.
not me. I can't,
Yeah.
I have no interest in it really. So
I think that's to your credit as a human being. That is probably says good things about you.
thanks. Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, no, thanks.
Oh, that's funny.
Um, so I wanted to ask, you are an educator.
Yeah.
Do your students read your books? Do they talk about them with you?
So I officially do not admit that I have any books to students because I live and teach in a very conservative part of the world. In fact, my school district, I won't, identify it, but was in Time Magazine, was on NBC News. It's all for these book challenges and death threats against Black administrators. And I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just like this
Yeah,
horrifying nightmare scape of. So anyway,
yeah. We have that here too,
yeah,
unfortunately.
and it's just like not a district where even though I'm out to my students as gay, I'm not going to also bring up this whole other life I have writing novels about gay men who novels that have in them explicit sex, right? I mean, like I'm having a hard enough time keeping books without explicit sex on my shelves, like in the library. So, but that's all my long lead up to say. Then, of course, somehow my students found me anyway. So I know. So, like one day, a kid just brought in one of my books, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" So
So how did
anyway,
you
they
how did you handle that?
well, I just said, "Hey, I just need you to understand. Like, I'm not going to say yes or no to what you're asking me right now, and there are a lot of complicated reasons for that, and I hope you'll understand why." And that student in question was very understanding, and other students understood. Kind of the conversation was, look, I'm not going to talk about my writing, whatever the pen name that you think it is might be, with you, and like that's just a part of my life. And now I'm in a different position where I don't have students rostered to me, and so there's a lot less of that because I just don't have the same interactions with kids. But yeah, that was a little. It like certainly made my heart speed up when I saw that book come out. I was like, wow, how do I respond to this? So it's a shame because I'd like to be able to say, hey, this is something I'm proud of. Um, like if you're interested in writing, let me talk to you about what I do and my process. But the reality is that's just not something I can do if I want to keep my job, I think. So, yeah.
It's unfortunate that that's the America we live in now. So
Yeah. It's really, I mean, so you said you're having similar things in your area.
book challenges
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's it's hard to I sat in on a lot of the book well people who in the very last Hazard and Somerset novel is about a book banning, and of course that came out of my experience sitting on these committees with people who clearly had not even read the book they were challenging. They're these organizations that are malicious, and they are really just organizations of ill will that send out lists of books and screenshots of pages so these parents, can submit complaints. And it was just remarkable to sit there and, they would object to at least two of them were about, these books where characters use drugs,
mm.
and so they're objecting to the representation of drug use, the glorification of drug use. Well, in both books, it's about how horrible your life is happening. It's like these people whose lives were ruined by drug use. And finally, somebody on the committee just said, "Did you even read this book? Like, do you know what it's about?" And I mean, it's just so like it's just hard to take any of it seriously when it seems to be coming from a disingenuous and inauthentic place. I mean, you can't even say like this person has a good has the best of intentions and we just disagree. I mean, they're just doing it because they're bad. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I saw some really like mind-boggling statistic that 90% of the book challenges are coming from the same 11 people or something
yes,
like that.
yeah, that's exactly how it is. Yeah. Well, the real shocking one the two really shocking ones. I went to a convention where I heard a state librarian or a school librarian speak. She's from Louisiana, and she was basically not basically was accused of like pedophilia and all these things in public. And then when she filed a slander lawsuit, because this was being said at school board meetings, she was, being this, the judge dismissed it and said that's their opinion. They can say about you whatever they want. And I was like, well, I think I think that's why we have slander laws. Like, so that was one of the really shocking things. And the other really shocking thing I saw was that, where one of these schools, like it was like 100 and some odd challenges were filed by a teacher. And I was like, oh my gosh, like anyway, one of our ugliest challenge was from a teacher in our district. So I mean,
Wow.
I know what that's like, but
The
I
call
can't
is
imagine
coming.
that person doing 100 and something
Oof.
of them.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, she Anyway, I
Oof.
sidetracked us. I'm sorry. I got on
No,
my
no, no.
soapbox. I
It's
apologize.
it's a conversation. It happens.
Well, but it's
Um,
yeah. Anyway, that's my long answer of I try not to let the students know, but they have found out
if they find you, what can
anyway.
you do?
Right.
Which actually tangentially, and this wasn't in the questions I sent you, but I wondered, are you aware of or have you seen any of the Ashverse fan art floating around on Instagram?
Oh, I have I don't so I'm not on Instagram, so I don't know if I've seen all of it, but a lot of people come and share, like not come physically, but like share the stuff with me online through
Mm.
Facebook and Discord. So I've really loved the pieces that I've seen. I don't know if I've seen all of it. People are so generous with their talents. It's really amazing what they've created. So
Yeah, well, I mean, that's to me, that's like you've arrived
oh,
when you have fan art.
it's very very flattering that people will spend their time creating these beautiful things about my characters. It's really flattering and awesome. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was having a little fun, creeping your tag on
oh, well, thank you. I stay off of that stuff as much. I even stay off Facebook as much as I can because this is gonna sound really childish, but like people also tag you to say nasty things, and I just want to be like, why? I didn't. I was like, like I'll get in that little routine of clicking on my mentions and be like, oh, that's so nice. Oh, I'm so glad this person. And then you get to the really bad one, and it doesn't matter whether it's justified. It doesn't matter how many good ones you've seen, right? Like the ratio doesn't matter. And so finally, I was just like, I'm just better off. I should just do some self control, and I try not to go
mm,
down those rabbit holes anymore. But
look, knowing your limitations is a mark of emotional maturity.
okay, well, thank you, thank you. At least trying to be smart about it. Yeah, trying to be
Yeah,
smart about some of that stuff.
yeah. Well, it's sort of a rite of passage in some of the authors communities, or anybody basically that's writing,
Mm,
queer material.
hmm.
There's this one guy on Amazon that goes around giving one-star reviews to books that are queer focused.
Gosh, how does he have time? There are so many.
Look, he's committed.
Yeah, good. Well, he's a man with a
That's
mission.
He's a man with a mission, and
Gosh,
I hope
gosh.
his mom is proud.
Well, right. Jack, I love it. That's fantastic.
Um, Okay, so what have you been reading or watching lately that's been influencing you?
Well, I watched The Last of Us, which is that
Mm,
HBO. Did you see that?
yes,
What did you think?
I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I like it, for me that first season was basically perfect. Um I don't know where it'll go or if it'll fall apart. Too many shows unfortunately do, but that first season I just thought they really couldn't have done. And poor Tom, my partner, has to listen to me complain about almost everything we watch, so it was probably a relief to make it through a whole show where because I
Loved the
just loved it, loved it.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't watch a whole lot of TV, so like really committing to that was also like was to me a sign of how much I was into it because I really liked that. I've been reading a lot of Michael Connolly lately, which I had read some of the Bosch books not in order, and I'd read some of the Lincoln Lawyer books not in order, and um, but he's one of those writers who I really, for whatever reason, find myself coming back and I'll do one or two and then I'll move on to something else. So I've read a couple of those, and then I've been reading a lot of nonfiction about writing. And so I've just kind of those I kind of go through spurts of that where I pick up two or three and I read them. So I've got one more on my nightstand that I'm going to read, and then I'll get back to some fiction. But one of them was that From Where You Dream, that book about dream zoning. Are you familiar with this one?
Oh.
I hear a lot of people refer to dream zoning, and I didn't really know where that was coming from.
Mhm.
So I tracked this book down. It's really interesting. I think it's not think. He's very critical of genre fiction. So the author is, I think, I'm not sure if he's still alive, but he won a lot of prestigious awards, including that MacArthur Genius Grant, and so I mean he's
Mm.
clearly like brilliant. And the book has a really clear articulation of what he thinks fiction should do and how you should do it. I mean, I don't know that I walked away with a ton of stuff that I'm going to use, but it's always refreshing to hear someone who has something to say about writing and also does it. There's like a lot of people who will talk about writing and they don't ever produce anything. And you're like, well, I can tell you've read a lot of blogs, like, I mean, so anyway, it was certainly like something engaging and something that made me think. So,
Mm.
yeah. Oh, the next one is the Charlie Jane Anders. I don't know. Yeah, like she has some fiction that I don't know what the titles are because I haven't read her fiction, but this one is Never Say Never Say You Can't Survive. And it was like, it's based on a series of articles she wrote for Tor during the pandemic. And so I'm curious to see kind of the slant that she takes on kind of writing during times of crisis. So
Mm.
anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 Pandemic shut me down for about 6 months.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, and understandably so. Like yeah. I think for some people it shut them down much longer. It's just it turned everything on its head.
Really did. And then
Um,
when it did come back for me, it came back, with a vengeance. So that was
oh yeah.
good. Yeah.
Oh good.
Yeah. Well, during pandemic was when I wrote my first screenplay. So
Well, and so are you still writing screenplays? Because I know you've written more than one, right?
mhm,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah. At the moment, I'm pretty busy with stuff for my publisher,
Yeah.
Ilvo. But I have some screenplays kind of on the burner
Fun.
they're on the cork board and back there.
Yeah.
I got a pin in them.
Is it like, do you like jumping between different types of writing projects? Like, is that refreshing to you, or is it just however the story comes to you, it comes to you in a format that's,
Yeah, I found that I do really like the screenplay format,
Mhm.
um, because it allows me to draft out the story really quickly,
Yeah.
you know, and obviously it's just a skeleton, but it's a skeleton with like a fair bit of muscle on it.
Well,
Like,
sure. Yeah.
at the end of it, you really know what you've got. And definitely there are things that are different from one idiom to the other.
Right.
Um, there's things that just like you can't do in a novel because it won't carry over and vice
Hmm.
versa.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just a question of like it comes to me as a script, and so I
Yeah.
write it that way. My first two books for Ilva are adaptations of scripts,
Oh,
so
that's so cool.
it just it comes how it comes. But
Yeah.
I think the next script that I want to do is it's got to be a script.
Oh, cool.
So,
Oh, that's neat.
yeah.
Yeah, those really demand like an incredible discipline to like fit the story in that it's a much more I don't know, like limited isn't the right word, but like it's like a strict scope, right? Like you really have to fit it into this strict scope of how many pages you're allotted. And
Hmm.
then
Yep,
anyway, it's a really tight way of telling a story, which is awesome.
it is. And you will have to cut things you love.
Yeah.
Um, but the good part is that, when you go from there to the novel flows really easily
Oh
because
yeah.
you already know what happens. And sometimes you get to put back stuff you cut.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah, it is cool. I mean, I like both formats, so it's,
Yeah.
um,
But if you were just to sit down and write a novel, would you
mhm.
outline it?
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, but not my outlines are more like, um, you know, they're like a little more than you would fit onto the back of a cocktail napkin, but
Oh, wow.
they're not like super tight, like
Yeah.
meaty
Yeah.
kind of, because you can plan, but when you get into the weeds, things happen that you don't
Yes.
have necessarily control over.
Yes.
Sometimes your characters will turn around and say, well, I don't want to do that. And
Yes.
you get into hostage negotiations.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
I
Well,
know.
that's cool because by the time you've written the screenplay, then all of that is resolved, right?
Hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
And
Yeah.
then it's just a matter of, you deal like there's a lot of things that when you write the screenplay, there's a lot of things that you are gonna, you're gonna rely on, okay, whoever the actors are gonna convey all of this stuff
Hmm.
that you don't necessarily put in there, and you have to kind of fill that in more when you novelize.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the challenge. But yeah, I mean, I like working in both, and I like approaching from both directions because you get something different out of each.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I've never done a screenplay. I've done some reading around that process, and very impressive that people can do it because it's really demanding.
Yeah, but I mean, the first screenplay, like, and obviously I made changes for months or whatever afterwards. I was going and picking at it and changing stuff, but you know I drafted the first draft in like under 2 weeks.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So in a space of a few months I banged out like 4 screenplays or something. And
That's awesome.
you know
Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, in terms of that, just the investment of time.
yeah, and
Oh,
there's you spend your energy differently, but it's an interesting process.
that's really cool.
And I think it's great. I think you as an outliner, I think you would probably do very well at it.
Well, it certainly sounds like it plays more to that skill set because I
Hmm.
I think it would be really hard to. I mean, I guess you pants a screenplay, you really have to revise. I mean, like you would be revising and revising, right? Like that just seems like it would be a never-ending process.
Well, it can be. At some
Yeah,
point, you decide, okay, I'm going to stop futzing with this. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's cool.
yeah. Well, we all have different ways of. I think I get a lot from playing in different disciplines, and I think they can all feed each other. So
Well, and I think so. Like I said, I've not written a screenplay, but I
Mhm.
certainly feel like writing short stories versus
Mhm.
writing novels has taught me skills that skills that I and helps me practice skills. And writing in different genres has helped me in kind of, so maybe a similar idea that moving into new sets of demands and new kind of criteria that you're trying to meet teaches you to do other things that you hadn't really thought about.
Yeah, it just helps you bring a different way of thinking into,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, keeps things fresh
Yeah.
and, satisfies my ADHD. So,
Oh, that is also very, very important.
um, so, I the whole thing about storytelling is, it's something that we need as humans, and it serves a lot of purposes for us. And for some people, it's therapy, and for some people, it's educating and whatever. What do you feel it is for you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I know we touched on this in our last conversation, and it's something that I've lately, because I've been doing some more reading about this. I feel like I've had a better language to talk about, because for a long time I don't know that I would have been able to put into words entirely, and I'm sure there's still things that I won't fully capture. I mean, part of it is that it's fun. Like I really do enjoy telling stories. And I always have. I get up at 5 every day before work so I can write. And every morning when I'm in the shower, asking myself why I'm doing this, remind myself, I'm not even joking. It almost is every day that I'm like, well, if it's not fun, then you better go back to bed, because, like you have no guarantee anybody's going to want this except you. So I really try to have fun with it, and to like still find that pleasure in it. But I also think, as I've spent more time writing and thinking about what I've gotten out of it, there are a lot of people who talk about how writing is a way to come to know ourselves better, and I think that that is true. So I mean, there's Natalie Goldberg talks about this, and George Saunders talks about this. There's I can't think of his last name right now. I want to say Kevin Kelly, but I might be getting that wrong. So I'll have to try to get that right for the show notes. But like, like a lot of people, actually, that the dream zoning book, From Where You Dream, talks about this, right? That like, um, as the way our mind, the way our brain is built, right, is that there are parts that we don't have conscious access to, and that writing is a way to access parts of ourselves that we don't have a direct line of communication to. And I really believe that. And it's not like, it doesn't have to be woo woo, right? It doesn't have to be, but it can be, like, I mean, like there is something for me, like extremely fulfilling and kind of transcendent about writing something, and through that process coming to know myself better. So part of that was writing was a big part of my coming out process. After I was raised in a very, very conservative, very, very religious home, and after I left that, I was kind of adrift, and writing didn't become a spirituality for me. Like it didn't become a spiritual practice in that sense, but it actually helped me understand where I had shifted a lot of that emotional and psychic, I don't know, burden sounds wrong, investment sounds wrong, but like energy maybe, where I'd shifted a lot of that. And so like just like being able to find a way to parts of myself, I guess. And that's a very long answer to that question. But that's kind of what it is for me. It's fun, but it's also meaningful, and it's meaningful even if it's not meaningful to anybody else. It's meaningful to me, and that's really awesome for me. So I don't know, what is it for you?
Um, I think there's definitely a part of accessing the subconscious for me. So there's definitely, I don't want to call it therapy, but just
But it
kind of,
is something like that. I mean,
yeah,
it's along that path.
yeah. Um, and also I think there's a sense of, I mean, I'm still working on what is the unified theory of me,
Yeah,
um,
same. Yeah.
you know, but there is a sense of wanting to connect and wanting to present, just different ideas and different kinds of people to other people who wouldn't necessarily run into these kinds of people in
Yeah.
their worlds.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and that was when I was a songwriter, that was kind of a part of my, you know, mission statement, I
Oh,
guess.
cool.
I wrote a lot of songs that were sort of like portraits
Oh,
of people.
cool. I didn't know you were a songwriter. That's so impressive.
Yeah, in my 20s,
Oh,
we,
very
we we had
cool.
a moment.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, so I think that's it is sort of like a connection and maybe a little bit therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're coming up to time. Um, and I'm gonna do a lightning round with you.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited.
Okay. So this is going to be which of your characters you would want with you in different situations. And I'm going to
Oh my
give you a
gosh.
situation, and you have to tell me who you would want with you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Which of your characters would you most want with you during a potentially world-ending situation?
Oh, one of my characters' name is Emery Hazard. He's very
Mm.
practical. He would have a lot of plans and probably an emergency supply kit, all that stuff.
Okay. Yep. I would buy that.
Yeah.
Okay. How about for dinner at Buckingham Palace?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard.
And don't
So
say North.
no, no, not North and not Shaw for sure. John Henry is Emery's partner, John Henry Somerset, and
Mm.
he kind of was raised in a kind of an upper middle class family. He's very charming. He's very uh, attractive. I think he would be a good person. He could take the brunt of the conversation for me and like handle all of the niceties.
Okay. At a corporate boardroom table full of lawyers.
Oh gosh, I don't particularly like lawyers as a breed, so maybe North. I would say he would have a lot to say. He'd let them give them a piece of his mind.
Okay. Which one would you most rather be stranded on a desert island with?
Oh, okay. So one of my characters is a wildlife vet. His name is Teen. I think he would be good. He could keep me alive. He's kind of like Hazard. He'd have some practical skills.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Okay. Now we're going to do we're going to get into the supernatural BS part of the
Okay. I love it.
lightning round.
I'm ready.
Okay. What if you got suddenly thrown back in time to a town in the Old West? Who would you want?
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. I have a character who's a con man. His name is Jem. Jem is very adaptable. He's a great survivor. I think that he would do really well in the Old West. Like he could play cards, he could cheat at cards, he'd probably end up owning like a bordello. Like,
Nice.
yes, I love that.
Okay. How about a pirate ship?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea. This is so fun. This is such a fun idea. I'm so glad you thought of this. Who would I take? I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna have to mulligan that one because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
gonna let me think about it. I'll see if I come up with
Okay.
something better.
All right. Last one.
Okay, I'm ready.
You're in a haunted house.
Oh man. Ah. Hazard is like a total disbeliever and he's a skeptic. I think he would be, if it were a real haunted house, he'd be like the one who gets killed about halfway through the store. Through the Shaw would be fun to take to a haunted house because Shaw's a great believer in the paranormal and in kind of alternative new agey stuff. So I think Shaw would be a fun one to take to the haunted house.
Okay. That's if it's a real haunted house.
That's if it's a real haunted house. I
Now,
mean,
what if
even
it's like a
real or
Scooby-Doo
fake.
haunted house? Okay.
He would still love it. He would have a great time. He would be so disappointed at the end when you pull off, the
Pull off,
mask.
right,
Yeah.
and it's the local billionaire or whatever. Yeah.
Right. That was so fun. What a cool idea. That was a great idea.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had fun. I'm going to do a little sign off now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I have been your host, Jen Jackalone. Please check out the link to the Flint and Tinder series on Amazon, which will be in the description below. And you have been listening to Gregory Ashe, chatting with me, your host, Jen Jackalone, head geek in charge. Stay cool this Memorial Day weekend and stay geeky.